This episode of the Blue Collar Real Estate Podcast brought to you by Stacy Mayo and the Scott Miller team at Ruoff Mortgage. Whether you're buying new or refinancing, Ruoff has a solution for you.
Welcome to the latest edition of Blue Collar Real Estate. I am Ryan Herget, sitting here with my friend, my man, Greg Mayo. Greg, it's Friday afternoon. What's going on, my man?
Well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
It is 5 o'clock in Minneapolis is where it's 5 o'clock at.
Hey,
so.
Dude, I tell you what, I'm freaking excited about today. I'm excited about this episode because not only do we have a super cool guest coming on, but this kicks off a series for us.
This does. This is going to be a series that you and I are probably equally as passionate about. And our guest today, Jim Johnson, is going to dive into a lot of different perspectives when it comes to the trades industries and how do you get started in something like this? Because you and I are super passionate about this. I didn't go to college. I jumped right in and learned a trade of sales. It's a skill. It's a skilled
Right.
trade. And you dove right in and you got right into the contracting trade world. Super soon. And there's so much opportunity in this, and I think it's one of those things that is just simply not talked about enough. There's so much opportunity that if you take a little bit of time and learn a skill, everything in your life can literally change. And so I'm excited to unbox that today and bring Jim on, talk about that. But let's tell the story today.
And the thing is, skilled trades is a very, very viable option. Mm-hmm. There's a huge shortage of people right now in the trades, right? As we get into this, we're going to be highlighting different trades as we go and talk about how do you get into them and what that looks like, because schools just aren't sharing this with kids anymore.
Well, and that's what's important, is because it's all about awareness, right? How do you know if you'd love to do something if you're never exposed to it or you never do it? And there's no shop classes left in high school. I loved auto mechanics class when I was in high school. It was something I really, really enjoyed doing, and I learned how to change oil in my car and change brakes in my car, which saves me a bunch of money, and
Right.
kind of a fun activity for me to do. And so when we say skilled trades, it's not only the guy sweeping the floor. It's understanding how to build things, how to manufacture things, how to create things, and understanding how to develop a skill that's going to carry your life forward in a dramatic way.
Now, funny story quick. So I took every shop class you could take when I was in high school, and this was in the 80s, so there was everything. I really, really liked the carpentry stuff, go figure. But when I took auto shop, the project, the second semester, was you tore down an engine, and you put it all back together and then started it. So I started my engine. Mr. Volts walks around. Great name for a shop teacher, Mr. Volts. Anyway, he walks around with this clipboard, and my engine's running, he's marking stuff off, and he looks down and he says, "Mayo, what's that box?" I saw it's just some extra parts I had left over. He said, "Extra parts from what?" I said, "The engine." He wrote C- and walked away. I'm like, "Wait, but it runs."
Details.
So I knew mechanics wasn't for me. I want to share this quote. It's one of my favorite quotes of all time about trades, frankly. St. Francis Assisi said it. He said, "He who works with his hands is a laborer. He who works with his hands and his head is a craftsman. He who works with his hands, his head, and his heart is an artist."
I couldn't agree more with that statement. It's so true, and I want to kind of back that up a little bit, because Jim's going to talk about this here in a little while as well when we bring him on. But taking the time up front to learn a skill, to literally learn to work with your hands, that is something that will literally pay you for the rest of your life.
Right.
And I'm going to give you an example of that. So about 12 years ago now, I got out of the sales role that I was in, and I got into the roofing world, and it was something I literally knew nothing about. Zero. I remember going home my first night and Googling what is gutter apron, what is drip edge, what is 3-tab shingle, what is flashing. I had no idea what this stuff was, completely foreign. But my second day I went out and ran a job, and I actually saw how this stuff came off. I saw how it happened. My third day there, I went out and did that again, and they gave me a hammer and said, "Hey, hit a couple shingles in here and figure it out." And they were there. They helped me out doing it. And fast forward a handful of years, now I just did 2 roof repairs today, replacing no more than 6 shingles, had less than 2 hours of time invested in doing this entire thing, and was able to generate over $800 worth of revenue, of which over $700 of that was profit for our company today. And that was learning a simple skill that shingles aren't going to quit blowing off. It's not going to quit raining outside. There's always going to be a need for things like that. And I'm talking roofing here, but there's so many other trades where this directly applies.
Yeah, a lot of them are just recession proof, because if your furnace breaks in the winter, it doesn't matter if it's a recession.
Somebody's calling you.
You're going to figure out a way to get it fixed. And the thing that bothers me, I guess, other than we're not teaching at schools anymore like we should be, you think back 100 years ago when I was a kid. What, nothing? Nobody?
Crickets right there.
Is this mic on? I'd tap it, but Jason would kill me. Anyway, so 100 years ago, a skilled tradesperson, a craftsman, whatever, was held in the same regard as a teacher, a clergy member. Mm-hmm. It was considered a profession. Mm-hmm. that Bruce Springsteen song, back then they grew you up to do like your daddy done.
Yeah.
And that's just what you did. It was a legacy that was passed down. And if you don't believe me, go walk through a 100-year-old house.
You see it all. Yeah, you see indications that everywhere that you go.
And so, fast forward to the '80s, and it started before this, but the '80s is that's when I was in high school and whatever. And in the '80s, trade programs started going away, and kids were encouraged to go to college. Go to college, you get a degree so you can get a good job.
And while I think that is great advice, I think that there is a lot of validity to that for some people. I think for a lot of people, it is not necessarily the only path that you have to consider to find success. Well, and here's why I say that is because there's almost $1.6 trillion in student loan debt, and that is dramatically increasing. If you look at the bell curve of how student loans are increasing, that's debt that's not being paid off. People are spending more and more and more to get an education that may or may not directly apply to what they're going to be doing after they graduate. And I understand the dynamic, and this is not the show for, education this and education that, but I believe it's important. But there's also things that you can dramatically and effectively learn by hiring the right person and coach versus having to spend 4 years doing something that isn't applicable to what you're going to ultimately be doing every day when you grow up.
Right. And to get a degree just for the sake of getting one, like my older brother, he's got a doctorate in biomechanical sciences. Mm-hmm. He needed a degree
Absolutely.
to do that.
No doubt.
But hiring a coach, taking an apprenticeship without the student loan debt.
Well, and that's just it. And so let's kind of fast forward here because I want to bring Jim on because Jim actually owns a company that is Contractor Coach Pro, and Jim's the head coach at this company. And one of the things that he does is he has this ability through his vast understanding of the trades industry and having done it from all different angles himself. He now teaches people to do this, and you can literally work with his company, and he's going to teach you all the lessons that you don't want to learn as a business owner, and he's going to expose you to so many new things that you can do if an opportunity or a career in skilled trades is what you're looking for. So he's one example. But Jim, let's go ahead and bring you on at this point. And so again, everybody, this is Jim Johnson. He's the head coach at Contractor Coach Pro. And Jim, you share a very similar passion to Greg and I for the skilled trades industry and the opportunities that exist within that industry. Would you mind kind of sharing with everybody what's your story and kind of bring us up to speed on why this really hits home for you? And welcome to the show. Thank you again for taking the time to join us today.
Super excited to be here. That story is going to have to be Reader's Digest if we're going to keep it for a reasonable amount of time. I've always kind of had an entrepreneurial instinct on things. I had a neighbor across the road that recognized it and cultivated it, which I'm eternally grateful for. But I'm the type of person that does things and learns things by doing. Whatever that may be. Like I had a landscape business in high school that I grew to $175,000 a year as a kid. But I learned it by doing it, not by listening to a lecture or sitting in a business class or any of that kind of stuff. And you're talking about, this blue collar thing and what we do and what those opportunities are out there. If you're the type of person that learns by doing, sitting in a classroom full of 500 other kids listening to a lecture may not fit your particular personality. There's other opportunities out there other than college. Now, I'm not saying college isn't a good thing for certain professions. Sure. I mean, I definitely want my doctor to go to college.
Right.
But I don't know how many people I've seen go to college and get a business degree and come out of school and be working at a convenience store.
Right.
Because that's not a job. Business is not a job.
Correct.
Owning a roofing company is a job. Being a doctor is a job, and all of those things like specifics. Being a journalist is a job, but what kind? Which vein? Are you going to be on TV? Are you going to be radio? Like, what are you doing?
I have to interrupt. Journalism is no longer a job. But go ahead.
Well, yeah. I might agree with you on that.
Sorry.
It's a job. You're just not in control of it anymore.
Right.
It's super funny. But so for me, contractor, prior to that, I had been in sales. I had owned my own businesses and entrepreneurial stuff, got into contracting, and I saw this light like, wow, if I can really like create a system to this thing, I can scale this as big as I want, turn it into like McDonald's and do a whole bunch of it. And sure enough, it worked, did really well. Created a piece of software. That software got bought by one of the more prominent softwares in our industry called Acculinks. and I became their director of sales for the next 5 years or so. And I helped them get off the ground. That was great. But during all that time, I was in the back office of over 1,000 different contractors. And I'd sell them AccuLinks real quick. And then after that, it'd be like 3 or 4 hours of, so how'd you grow your company into 30 or $40 million? How'd you hire all those people? How'd you train them all? Why'd you just pay them commissions this way? And there's all these questions. And I went, it seems like there's a need for this. Like somebody that could help these guys walk this path a little bit quicker than I did, because I made a billion mistakes. I thought I knew it all. And after spending time at AccuLinks and 1,000 different contractors, there's a bunch of different ways to skin this cat and still get it naked.
And Jim, let me ask you something, because I was a contractor for a while too, and have owned a few different businesses. Do you find that there are a lot of really good contractors at whatever their trade is that don't know squat about how to run their business?
All of them? No, just kidding. So that's the thing. Like, the people that are in it now, in most cases, are people that were skilled in one of two things. They were skilled at the actual execution, building something, or they're skilled in the sales and marketing side of it and able to get people to work for them that do that, right?
Yeah.
That seems to be the two main things that I see. Very rarely, I mean, less than 1% of those folks have business experience, finance experience, process creation experience, recruiting and hiring, leadership experience, all those things that it takes to really run a true, like anybody can be, chucking a truck is kind of the way, that's what we call it, chucking a truck. I got a truck, I got a hammer, I got some tools, and I can go do work for you. But to have people work for you, to scale that thing, to reach dreams and achieve the things that you have envisioned for your life, you're going to kind of be living paycheck to paycheck as Chuck, but maybe you can do some of those things if you learn how to run a business, scale it, and understand your finances.
And
Go ahead.
that was the hardest part for me the first 5 years or so, right? Because I want to be out in the field selling the jobs, and I want to be doing the work. I love the sort of artistry of the work, right? What I didn't like was the back office stuff. And it was not only, frankly, a half-assed effort to do it, but it was the most mind-numbing, like, please, you could stick a spoon in my eye and swirl it around, and I'd let you do that if you do the back office stuff for me. So it's what you're talking about, right?
And that's kind of a simplified version of what we do with coaching with a lot of these contractors is, what is it that, because they wear a billion hats, right? And they are not the owner of their business. They are an employee of their business that they created. Everything they do is revolving around that, and they're not working on it, they're working in it. And so we have to determine what is it they're not good at. Most of you are terrible at the back end office stuff, administration and paperwork and things like that. That's just a given. So it's one of the first people we got to figure out who to hire, because if I could do that, get somebody there, how much more could I sell? And how much more could I execute?
So
and so they're actually, and all people, and whenever you're looking at hiring somebody, you have to look at the return on an investment revenue quotient for that person. If I hire them, I'm going to pay them $50,000 a year. Can I generate $50,000 or more in profit because of that?
Yeah.
And if I can't, don't hire them.
That's it. And so just to kind of hit the pause button on everything that we've talked about, rewind just a touch here. So Jim, what I'm hearing you say is, you spent 5 years of your life going out and visiting over 1,000 different contractors, helping them get their businesses set up with back-end tools and systems. So you took all of that, literally thousands of conversations with some of the top producing contractors in the entire country right now. You have intimate knowledge of their systems, their processes. You've seen what works, what doesn't work. So my question is this to anybody listening. Do you think you could benefit from that just as much as you could by paying a random person to go to college to teach you something versus spending maybe an hour on the phone with Jim or somebody like Jim every single week for about 16 weeks, maybe 21 weeks, and now all of a sudden you get to suck all of that information that he's learned by visiting with 1,000 different contractors, seeing what works, what doesn't work, and literally pay for that, and then get the result of fast forwarding past 20 years of mistakes that so many people make. That gets them stuck, that gets them bogged down.
And that's the way companies used to work. Mm-hmm. The guy that was the manager, the 50-year-old guy that waddled around with his clipboard that was the manager, he was the guy that started at 16 with a broom in his hand.
Yeah.
Now, you go to college to get a degree, and then you get another degree so you can teach other people that are coming into college what about the degree. It's mind numbing. So to have someone like Jim, who's got the real world experience, who's got the benefit, who's got what kind of grammar is that? Well, I don't know. He has the experience and the connections to have sort of been able to put all this together, and you get to benefit from it by hiring him as a coach.
Well, and I'm going to give somebody a perfect example of that. So Jim and I were having a conversation, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, Jim, this week, and I was like, man, I've got to find some different insurance for our company. It's like, I've got one, but it's not what I need at all. It's way too expensive. And Jim's like, yeah, you need to call this dude. And so I called that dude. And it was done. Problem solved with somebody that can solve the problem that you can connect people with. And that's what business is. You connect people that can solve the problem that this person has with this person over here, and you get paid to do that. That's how business works. And that's what I love about what you've built, Jim. So let's kind of take a deeper dive into a little bit of the contracting side of this. And again, you come from, a lot of the roofing world. I know you've got a lot of experience in that as well. And that's how we met several years ago. But just from a blanket perspective, though, I know one of the things that's important to you is actually doing the work, learning how to actually use your hands and do the work. Would you mind touching on that for maybe somebody that is considering, hey, well, maybe these three guys here are onto something. Where does somebody get started? How do you recommend getting started to learn, so that way fast forward through 3 or 4 years like you would in college, how do you walk out, and how what's different about your life at that point?
Well, you and I were talking on Monday, and I explained to you why I'm doing all this in the first place. It's not necessarily to help contractors make millions of dollars, although that's a good byproduct, and I'm proud of doing that. There's also a part of it where I want consumers to have really good contractors that they can rely on and trust.
No doubt.
But the real reason I'm doing this, I'm after something bigger than that. I'm after this opportunity in life to share with kids between the ages of 5th grade to 11th, 12th grade or so, that, if they want something bad enough, they can get it. And when they think they can, when they think they can't, they actually can.
Yeah.
And they get so caught up with this career path aspect of the way they're taught today of make good grades in school, go to college, get my degree. If that doesn't work, get my master's. Or that doesn't work, get my doctorate. And maybe I'll get a good job with a ton of debt. But not all learning styles fit that very well, which I mentioned earlier in that hands-on type of aspect of things. And then there's also all that expense that goes along with it, where real-world experience, while it doesn't cost you a whole lot other than time, you mentioned you got into sales, right? Like that's a learned skill. Probably when you first got into it, you were terrible at it, like I was.
Without a doubt, yes.
But I persisted. And I was disciplined, and I understood the value of what I was learning. And within a short period of time, and we're talking like months, not years, within months, I was one of the top salespeople in where I was working. And within a year, I was the top salesperson. Within 2 years, I was the sales manager for the location. Within 3 years, I was running all the locations. Within 4 years, I was vice president of sales of franchises across the country. In the same time, somebody went to college.
Truly.
As a 23, 22-year-old kid, I'm making $275,000 a year, and you're graduating college, and you don't know if you have a job.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I was wired for that. That was what I was passionate about. And that's my biggest thing is like, what are you passionate about? Go after that thing. But that doesn't necessarily mean you don't do a job to get to there. Like I'm doing this job as a coach to get to this place to help kids. Mm-hmm. And everything I've done to this point is work towards that. And I don't think we see that long range, especially as kids. I don't remember seeing that long range of a thing as I do today. But I think we think we're going to graduate college and get a $100,000 job. It just doesn't work that way.
No, and it just doesn't, because if you're one of many people that are graduating with the exact same degree, I mean, I apologize for saying it this way, but you're just kind of one of many. It's like, what are you doing to differentiate yourself and set yourself apart from everybody else in the crowd? And Jim, I want to kind of circle back to something that, you said there a few minutes ago is that, you spent about 4 years, getting yourself to a position where you're making a strong six-figure income, within a very young period of time in your life. And that's something that I truly want everybody to grasp right now. And that is that within a 5-year period of time, you can change everything about your life in every single way.
Absolutely.
You can do it way faster than that, but within 5 years, you can literally go from I have nothing to I have millions and millions of dollars in the bank. And I say that because I'm not one of those people, but I know 6 of them right now that just did that. They, in various businesses, have literally done that by sticking to the path, knowing this is what I need to do every day. These are the levers that I need to pull every single day to get it done. Talk to people, show homes, list homes, negotiate deals if you're in real estate. Very similar if you're in any form of trade business. You have to talk to people about what you do. Then you have to manage that process. And I think so many people just neglect to take the time to do that. There's nothing wrong with the first year you make $50,000 by learning to, again, I'm going to use this analogy because it's the hat I'm wearing right now, but to learn how to put shingles on a roof. But like you just said, Jim, you learn how to do that first. So that way, then you can learn the skill set of sales, and you can learn how to manage accounts receivable and accounts payable and negotiating with insurance companies. It's a layered period of time, or it's a layered effect. But over a period of time, 4 years, you made amazing things happen. That's what I love about that story. Is you started with I don't know anything about this, and within a 4-year time period, you're literally running the company. That's awesome.
So you know what you just described there, right? There's a word for it. It's called discipline. And like, if I could teach anybody anything, understanding the value of discipline before you start getting an education, that's after high school or even before, possibly. If you understand discipline, you understand that you'll go through the hard stuff to get to the good stuff. Mm-hmm. And we actually talk about it quite a bit around here, the difference between motivation and drive. And then if you apply discipline, it's like adding nitrous oxide to it. And so motivation is what gets us started. That's the thing that gets us excited. And hey, let's go do this new thing. But when you start to hit obstacles and that kind of stuff, that drive is what keeps us going. I'm hungry. I want something. I'm after something. And if you don't have this thing out there that you're after, that drive will die really quick. That's the thing you're passionate or the purpose you have. Then the discipline is what you apply to that to be the work smarter, not harder, and to be persistent. And so if whoever's listening to this, I hope tons of people do, especially young people, like if you can get that equation down, that motivation plus drive times discipline exponentially will drive your income, figure that piece out and you Katie bar the door on whatever you're after. I want to circle back a little bit to the original question you asked me, like, so, somebody wants to get started in this, especially like from the labor side. There's a shortage of labor. I think you mentioned that 8 million labor jobs that are out there that are unfilled at this point. Anytime you have that type of situation, it's basic economics of supply and demand. And when there's high demand, you get paid very well to do something. People putting on shingles today are making $60,000, $70,000 a year just putting on shingles. Yes, it's hard work and you sweat a lot and it's a lot of sweat equity, but you learn something. You have a skill now. You have something that if you learn it well and you become that artist that you guys were talking about earlier, that's something you can teach to somebody else. And once you get to a point where you can teach somebody else something, your knowledge becomes valuable, not your back.
And thank you so much for making that segue right there, because it is so invaluably true. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. So I used to work with a gentleman and you talk about the guy that has been doing it for 50 years type thing, but he knew how to do this EVA siding. And, when we would flash around a chimney, if you don't know what that is, it's very similar to stucco. It's a very complex siding. It's not something we see commonly here in Indianapolis. And this was the only dude that we knew that could do this stuff. You can imagine, to your point, Jim, since he was literally about the only guy in town that knew how to do this stuff, he was always scheduled out 3 months to get anything done, because at that time, I'm talking 12 years ago now, there was nobody that knew how to do this stuff. And this guy was so far booked out, and it was ridiculously expensive, but he hadn't made that correlation to do what you just did. He was the only one doing it. Instead of, now how do I leverage that information? Teach other people and make money by teaching them, versus always being on a roof at 50 years old still doing that actual work, because that does get hard. That's really, really hard after a period of time. But if you bring people along, you share what you've learned, and all of a sudden you can scale and grow in a rapid way.
Well, and keep in mind, guys, and either one of you, correct me if I'm wrong, but I tell young people all the time that all skilled trades are what I call secret knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Why do lawyers make so much? My lawyer friend Andy charges more per hour than my mortgage payment almost. Not quite, Andy, don't be offended. But my point is, he charges that because it's secret knowledge. Mm-hmm. My buddy Mike that does HVAC, owns his own company. They make a lot of money. Why? Because I can't go take apart my furnace and replace, well, anything but the filter. And it's like that with every trade. I'm fairly well versed in a lot of trades because I was a general remodeling contractor. You and I have talked several times. I'm not popping off shingles and then relacing them, and no, it's not what I do. I don't know.
Got your handle on that one. I'm joking. Shameless plug. But no, just to kind of put a bow tie on this episode. It's Jim, I'm so thankful for your time on this because you've shared some incredibly invaluable insights, and I really hope that especially the young people are listening to this because I'm so passionate about what this world of skilled trades has to offer. Whether it's learning to nail shingles, whether it's learning to be a pipe fitter, whether it's learning to be a welder, there's so many opportunities that exist that only if you say, you know what, it's okay to learn something new, and the minute you do learn something new, you might actually enjoy it. I wanted to be a race car driver when I grew up. That's what I was supposed to do, and then I got into sales so I could afford to make enough money to buy race cars. Well, then all of a sudden I found myself in the roofing world, and I loved it. I enjoyed it. I love being outside every day. I love the fact of in real estate, it's a long sales cycle. It's sometimes a 6-month sales cycle in real estate. Whereas with a roof, I meet with somebody today. We can put the roof on in about a week and a half. It's a one-day thing. We get to see their house go from pretty meh to awesome in a very short period of time. And we're in and we're out. And I love that side of it as well. So it's just got so many things that if you're not open to a new idea, you're not open to exposing yourself to it, you're missing out on so many things. And what's so beautiful about this, like you just alluded to, Jim, the money is insane.
Right.
And the barrier to entry is relatively low as long as you show up on time and do what you say you're going to do every single day. So,
Jim, you got anything else you want to share before we bounce?
Don't get caught up in stigma. Don't
Right
get caught
on.
up in that. Like, you get stigma about things. Like, man, I can remember I was sitting in high school. I did not want to be a roofing contractor. I wanted to be an artist, which is why the quote that you said to me earlier it really hit home with me, is this has really become an art for me. And that's how I have approached this thing. So don't get caught up in the stigma. Be proud of whatever that thing is that you find that helps you get to where you want to be. Diesel mechanic, roofer. In the top 10 richest men in America, waste management. They scoop poop. Like, that's what they do. Don't get caught up in that. So, there's a lot of value in understanding the delivery of a service nobody else wants to do.
And I've got one last small little side story on this, but speaking of exactly what you just said, so when is the last time you lifted up the lid on your garbage can at home? I mean, think about that real quick. And you know how the bag leaks a little bit and it's not so sexy under there after about, a week or two? So I know a real estate agent who literally was dealing with this a lot and started her own company doing this with her family. And they have grown that business to almost a 7-figure level in 3 years by buying a truck and cleaning garbage cans out. I'm not joking,
Dude, I believe it. And
we have one here. We have somebody that does that here in my neighborhood. They send it out to all the Facebook groups, and they're just killing it.
Yeah.
I'm not paying you to clean my garbage can. I can take a water hose out.
Right.
But then that pasta primavera or whatever you made 2 nights ago that spilled, now it's sitting in the bottom of there, and that's nastiness. So it's like it's there. It's like just look for those opportunities.
That's where the brilliance comes from, right? That's where the entrepreneurial look. I got to share this. I feel like I'm against a hard break. It's my show. I can do what I want. Jason, how much time do I have left on my clock? No.
As much as you want.
Thank you, brother. I'm in lawn care back in the day, and I'm sitting there writing up an estimate on a house. This guy pulls up in a van, or S10 truck, and on the side it said Poop Scoop Express or something. I don't know. Anyway, so I watch him get out of his vehicle. This is up on the north side of Indy, and he literally went into someone's yard, picked up a bunch of crap, wrote an invoice, put it on the door. I couldn't help it. I got to go talk to this guy. He was younger than me at the time. I was 25 or something, 26. He said, well, a couple people in the neighborhood, and they started paying me and blah, 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 blah. So fast forward, I bump into him a few years later. I'm now a sales manager for this company. He had 3 trucks on the road.
I love it.
All they did was go to people's houses and pick up their animals' caca.
I love it. I love it. The opportunity is everywhere. You
That
just gotta look
kid
for
was
it.
brilliant.
Part of me is like super thinking that's cool, right? Like, wow, what opportunity, what good entrepreneurial thought processes. The other part of me is like, God, how lazy are we? Really,
Exactly.
it has really become extreme. If we can't clean out our garbage cans and pick up our own dog's poop, boy, we are absolutely just.
These
We
people
might be lost.
People have turned it into $1 million business. It's crazy. So, well, Jim, we are super, super thankful for your time today. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes to join us on Blue Collar Real Estate. So, Greg, anything else we need to tackle on this one?
No, I just want to remind people in the show notes when you look online, you'll have contact information for Jim in case you have need of his services.
Definitely reach out to Jim. And, as we fast forward here over the next 6 weeks, we are literally going to dive into the nitty gritty of several different trades. We're going to be bringing people in on the show that are going to walk us through what's it take to get started in things like HVAC and roofing, etc. So stay tuned. It's going to be exciting. This is all about providing value that you can walk away and do something with. So, Jim, thank you very much. Everybody, be sure to smash that like, comment, subscribe button. We want to hear from you if you took anything away from this. And that's it. Have a good weekend.
Take care.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.